All right, let's just jump right in. You know that feeling when you have to write something for university or maybe a formal report, and it feels like you're trying to learn a completely new language? Yeah, you are definitely not alone. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the core principles of what makes academic writing work. We'll be using some fantastic insights from a lecture at Brunel University London Pathway College to hopefully turn all that confusion into some real confidence.
So here's how we're going to do this. First, we'll tackle what is, for many, the toughest challenge of all. Then, we're going to dive right into the solutions, picking the right words and building a really solid argument. We'll even look at a real essay to see how this all plays out, and then we'll wrap it up with the one big takeaway that makes sense of everything.
All right, first up, let's get right to the heart of the matter, the one question that I think probably brings most of us here.
And yeah, it feels so different, because honestly, in a lot of ways, it is different. It really asks us to shift gears in how we communicate our ideas. But the good news is, by the end of this, you're going to have a clear, totally actionable toolkit to help you make that shift, and not just make it, but make it with real impact.
So, where do we even begin with all this? Well, what's really interesting is that a huge part of the solution starts with the most basic building blocks of all, the actual words we pick. And step one is getting a handle on that formal tone.
To really build that sense of credibility and authority in your writing, you have to make a conscious choice to step back from how we normally talk. This means, dropping the contractions like don't and won't, ditching the slang, and definitely losing the exclamation marks. It's all about creating a more measured, more objective space where your ideas can really stand on their own.
Okay, let's look at a quick example. Check out this shift. It's subtle, but it's so powerful. The word tremendous feels a little personal, maybe even a bit over the top. But when you swap it for major, you're still saying it's important, but in a much more measured, objective way. Just that one little word choice can instantly make your writing feel more credible. Here's another great one. Scratch a living. It's an idiom, something we'd say out loud, but replacing it with survive by farming does two things. Sure, it's more formal, but more importantly, it's way more precise. It actually tells the reader how they survived, and that adds a whole new layer of clarity.
And this works for descriptive phrases too, right? Hit and miss, that's totally conversational. But a word like erratic, well, that just sounds more analytical. It's a more precise and fitting term for a formal paper.
Same goes for actions. Saying scientists are looking into something is fine, but it's kind of casual and vague. But when you say they're investigating, that immediately sounds more serious. It suggests a systematic, rigorous process, which is exactly the kind of tone you're aiming for when you're talking about research. Okay, and this is a really, really crucial point. Being formal does not mean you have to be complicated. Just look at this. That first sentence is trying so hard to sound academic that it just becomes this jumbled mess that's hard to read. The second one, it's direct, it's clear, and because of that, it's way more powerful. When in doubt, always choose clarity. So all of these examples are really pointing to one of the core principles of academic writing, and that's objectivity. The whole game is to build your argument on facts and evidence that someone else can check, not on your personal feelings or opinions. That's what builds trust with your reader, and that's what ultimately makes your case so much more persuasive. All right, so we've got our words down. Now let's talk about the architecture. How do we actually build something with those words? How do we arrange them into a strong, logical structure that actually guides your reader from one point to the very next?
I want you to think of these connecting words as signposts on a road. They are absolutely essential for creating a smooth, logical flow. Words like however or therefore literally tell your reader, okay, we're turning here, or this is where we're headed next. They make sure your reader never gets lost.
And here is a simple but, incredibly powerful rule. The golden rule, really. Stick to one main idea for every paragraph. That's it. This is the absolute bedrock of a clear structure. It forces you to focus your thinking, and it makes your argument so much easier for your reader to follow along.
Okay, this next one might seem a little weird at first. We're talking about hedging. Now, this isn't about being unconfident or wishy-washy. It's actually about being intellectually honest. See, saying something will happen is a huge absolute claim. But using a word like may or could, well, that shows you understand the nuance and the uncertainty of the real world. And funnily enough, that often makes you sound more credible, not less.
And finally, you get to the absolute foundation of your entire argument. This one is non-negotiable. Every single claim you make has to be backed up by credible evidence. And you have to cite where you got it from. It's how you avoid plagiarism, sure,
but it's also how you give credit where it's due and let your readers see the solid bedrock of facts your entire case is built on.
Okay, theory's great, but let's put all these ideas to the test. We're going to look at a quick case study here, an analysis of a sample essay about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's a perfect way to see these common strengths and weaknesses in the wild.
And this table really says it all, doesn't it? It shows just how easy it is to miss the mark, even if you have the basic structure right. Just look at that weaknesses column. It's like a greatest hits of everything we just talked about. Clichés, informal language, messy flow, bad referencing. It just goes to show you how all those little things can really add up and weaken your entire argument.
So we've broken down the words, the structure, the common mistakes. What does this all boil down to? What's the one universal takeaway you should have in your head every time you sit down to write?
It really all comes down to these 4 pillars. Remember, the goal of great formal writing isn't to sound smart by using big, complicated words. Not at all. The real goal is to communicate complex ideas with crystal clarity. If you just focus on these 4 things, clarity, precision, objectivity, and structure, you will always be on the right track.
And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Think about it. This stuff isn't just for essays and reports. How could these same principles, clarity, precision, backing things up with evidence, having a logical flow, how could they make you a better communicator in everything you do? In your emails, your presentations, maybe even just in conversations with friends. It's a really powerful skill set that goes way, way beyond the classroom.